Hello, I'm Ollie and this is CriminOlly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, a butt ton of books. It's my weekly wrap-up. So I've had a very productive reading week. I've got 14 books to talk to you about today, albeit one of those 14 is a DNF and a number of them are manga volumes rather than prose books. So I think that's why the number is quite as high as it is, but I have nevertheless read a lot of stuff this week. It's just been one of those weeks when everything's clicked and it's been a really good reading week. So I'll talk to you in a minute about the books. And then do the normal kind of stuff I do in these weekly videos where I just talk about videos that have been up on the channel and what's coming in the week ahead as well. But with 14 books to talk about, this could take a while, so you might want to get yourself a cup of tea or coffee before we start. And before I get into the books, I just wanted to do the thing I always forget to do in my videos, which is just talk about different ways you can connect with me. So firstly, thank you for watching my videos. I really do appreciate it. If you're not a subscriber already, do consider subscribing. It just means my videos will show up in your feed so you won't miss anything. And if you want to go the extra mile, you could even click the notification button, which means you'll get a notification in YouTube or in the YouTube app when I post a new video, just so you don't ever miss anything. You can also connect with me on Discord. So if you don't know, Discord is a service. It's an app you can get for your phone, or you can access it in a web browser and things like that as well, and it's just like a community. So I've got a Discord community with I think over 500 people in it now, where we just hang out and chat about books. There are different channels where we talk about different things, like different types of books. We do like monthly reading groups and things like that. We talk about movies, all sorts of different stuff. So if you fancy that, there's a link to my Discord server in the description. It's completely free to join. You just need to create an account and download the app. It's really easy to do. You can also connect with me on other kind of social places, so like Instagram, and also Goodreads. So if you don't know Goodreads, it's a really great place for just recording what you've been reading and chatting about books, posting little reviews of things and that kind of thing as well. So again, both of the links to both of those are in the description for this video and the about section for my channel as well. So if you fancy connecting with me in different ways, chatting about books in different places, then those are some of the places you could go. The other thing you could consider doing is subscribing to me on Patreon. So Patreon is a service for creators like me that allows us to share different kinds of content with our fans. So you pay a monthly subscription fee. There are different tiers, going from, I think the cheapest is $3 a month up to $15 a month for the most expensive one for my particular Patreon. And you get different perks at different levels. So things like early access to my videos, ad-free access to my videos, a Patreon book club every month. You can get merch. There's all sorts of different stuff. So again, there's a link to my Patreon page in the description for the video and in the about section for the channel. Click on that, have a look around, see if you feel like you fancy it. You can subscribe for just a month and get a feel for it and decide if you want to continue or not. And I'm also now, for the first time, able to offer annual subscriptions as well. So if you subscribe for a whole year, you save a fair amount of money. It's almost 2 months worth of the subscription charge if you subscribe for a year. Right, so that's that kind of blurby bit out of the way. Let's get on with the books, because that's what people really care about. So let's talk about the DNF first. So this may not be a huge surprise to people, but I DNF'd Return of the King, the last book in the Lord of the Rings saga. So I read the first 2 books last year. I think it was last year or earlier this year. No, I'm pretty sure it was last year. I read the first 2 books last year. I really liked the first one. The second book, The Two Towers, I liked half of it and really didn't like the other half of it. So I started reading this, and I just felt the memory of reading The Two Towers and the pain I'd felt reading The Two Towers. And I just decided I couldn't face 300 pages of it. I got about 30 or 40 pages through and just decided now is definitely not the right time for me in this book, and I do question whether there'll ever be a right time for me in this book. So I know lots of people really love the Lord of the Rings series, and I get why people feel such passion for it, but it just really feels like it's not my kind of thing. So let me also talk quickly now and again now then about the manga that I've read, and I'm deliberately not going to talk in great depth about any of this. So I'm doing a vlog at the moment. I'm filming a vlog video where I read the first instalment of 10 different manga volumes and manga series to see what I think of it. So the 5 that I've read this week are so firstly on Kindle, Case Closed, or Detective Conan as it's also known, which is kind of a comedy, a mix of comedy and mystery. So yeah, as I say, I'm not going to give my impressions of any of them. I'm going to be deliberately coy, so I don't spoil the surprise for that longer video where I'm going to rank them in order. So yes, anyway, Detective Conan or Case Closed. I also read Chainsaw Man, so the first volume of that, which is a kind of over-the-top horror type thing, as you can probably guess from the cover. Blood on the Tracks, which is more of a kind of atmospheric, creepy horror type thing. Black Butler, which was very strange. I didn't really know what to expect going into this, and ended up not being quite what I was expecting. And then one of the most beloved manga series, One Piece, as well. So I read the first volume of that as well. So as I say, I'm filming a longer form video where I'll talk about all of these as well as the other 5 things that I'm going to be reading. I'm hoping, if I manage to get my finger out, that I might get that video up this week. So that's the manga out of the way. So we've got through 6 things already. So we've got 8 left to go. So let me talk about the ones I read on Kindle first. So the first one was Sworn to Silence by Linda Castillo. So this is the first in a series of mystery novels set in an Amish community, or around an Amish community in the States, and about so the lead detective, or the sheriff in the town, is this woman who was raised Amish and has moved away from the faith and is now a cop. So this was a mystery about a serial murderer plaguing the town, with a link to stuff from the lead detective's past as well. So I read this for the Amish in April series, or Amish in April reading event that's run by Sarah from The Bookish Knitter. This was so good. I wasn't expecting much from this book, and I loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. It was very simple. It used a lot of tropes and cliches and things like that, but it did it all wonderfully. So I think I'm going to do a standalone review for this book. I really, really had a good time with it. The Amish in April event, just so you know, is basically where you read books with some kind of connection to the Amish faith. So it was my knowledge of the Amish is limited to the movie Witness, which came out when I was a teenager. So it was interesting reading about that, that kind of community as well. But yeah, just a really solid thriller. Next thing I read on Kindle then, or another thing I read on Kindle, was Any Other City by Hazel Jane Plant. So again, I read this for a reading event. I read it for the Trans Girl April event, where we're reading books by trans and non-binary authors. This was fantastic. So this was a book about a trans musician, like a pop star, and her journey, basically. So it's in the first half of the book, it's told in 2 halves, like side A and side B, like a record. In the first half, it's before she's transitioned and before she's famous. The second half is after she's transitioned and after she's famous, so a good few years later. And there was just something about this book that just worked perfectly for me. It captured so many of the emotions that you feel as a kind of young person in your teens and 20s, growing up and trying to figure out who you are. And it also just has a fantastic kind of rock and roll vibe to it. I had such a good time with this book. Again, like the Linda Castillo book, I didn't really know what to expect going in, and I didn't necessarily have really high hopes for it, but I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I think I'm going to do a review video where I review the 3 books that I've read for Trans Girl April and talk about them, because they were all, in different ways, they were all really good. So while I think of that, let's talk about the other one that I read this week. So I was reading this last week when I filmed this video. So the book is Felix Ever After by Kaysen Callender, which is about a young trans man in New York, just figuring out emotional stuff and relationships and things like that. So someone who goes to an art college, And the book starts with another student at the college, or someone else at the college, you don't really know who it is at first, putting up pictures of this trans person before they transitioned to like deliberately hurt them. So a lot of the book is about them trying to figure out who's done that. So it's got like a nice mystery element to the core of it. It is a YA book, and it definitely reads like a YA book, but I did think it was very good. The final thing that I read then on Kindle then, and I just finished this morning, was 19 Claws and a Blackbird, the new short story collection from Augustina Bastarrica, who's best known for her novel Tender is the Flesh. So this is coming out early next month. I managed to get an advance copy of it through NetGalley. I'm not going to talk too much about my thoughts on it, because I'm going to do a review video for it, but I wasn't blown away by it, let's put it that way. Right, other physical things I've read then. So A Game for the Living by Patricia Highsmith. So Anne Novella and I are doing a read through of all of Patricia Highsmith's novels. This was definitely the least of them so far. So it's set in Mexico City in, I guess, the 50s, which is when it was written. Yeah, published in the 50s. So it's about a young woman dies, and she's got two lovers who are very different from each other, who kind of get caught up in the investigation into her death. And it's a mystery at its heart, trying to work out who was the murderer, but also very much kind of psychological study of the two men. And the first half of it I really, really enjoyed. I thought it was, the mystery element was really well handled. The characters were well drawn, and the setting of Mexico City was well evoked. But the second half, it just lost it for me, particularly the final third. I just found it a bit confusing, a bit contrived, and I ended up not really enjoying it that much. So that was a bit of a disappointment. Definitely, as I say, the least of the Patricia Highsmith books that we've read so far. The others have all been pretty excellent. Something a bit different from me, so a bit of non-fiction. So I read If This Is a Man by Primo Levi, which is, I think there's 3 books in his overall account of his time during the Holocaust at Auschwitz. This is the first of those. So Levi was an Italian Jew who was imprisoned in Auschwitz during the Second World War, albeit fortunately for him towards the end of the Second World War, and largely as a result of that timing, he did survive. So this is clearly a very disturbing book at times. Some of the things that he recounts in this book are absolutely horrific, as you'd imagine, but also a very warm book, and very much a book about the people he met, the characters he met, and how they got through that terrible experience. So a really really wonderful and important book, and I will go on at some point. So this volume has two of the books in it. The first one, If This Is a Man, which is the one I read, and then the second one, The Truce. So I will go on and read The Truce at some point as well. Next then, so I read a book I keep on mispronouncing the name of, so I'm going to be really careful. So it's Pedro Paramo by Juan Ralphio. So a very famous Mexican novel. So I read this with one of my patrons, Horalas. So I talked about my Patreon at the start. So one of the benefits of the top tier of my Patreon is you get to do a buddy read with me, and you get to pick the book. So Horalas had chosen this book. So a really fascinating book. And the rare thing for me in that it's a book that as soon as I finished reading it, I was thinking about reading it again. And I'm fairly sure I will read this again soon, because it's one of those books where there's so much depth to it that I feel like I need to read it again to really get it. So so the story is really simple. So the story is about a young man who travels to this town to try and find his father, and his father is Pedro Paramo. And the story is told in 2 halves. So half of it is like the present day, contemporary to the book, with this young man travelling to the town to discover more about his father, and then the other half of it is about his father's past in the town. But just beautifully written. One of those books that really feels like it's about the human condition and what it means to be alive. So yeah, really, really good book, but one I definitely feel like I need to reread in order to really get the most out of it. Right, one more thing to go then. So we got through that quite quickly, actually, didn't we? So the next one then, Dark Passage by David Goodis. So the first of his books in this Library of America volume. So Goodis was a kind of writer of noir fiction, and this definitely is a noir novel. So it's about a guy who's been imprisoned for murder, and a murder he didn't commit, and through a series of kind of chances manages to escape from prison. He kind of doesn't really plan to, things just happen and he escapes, and he's then on the run, and it's about him reconnecting with people from his past and trying to figure out who committed the murder that he was in prison for. As you'd expect from something like this, there are other deaths as the story progresses. It did lose its way for me a little bit in the final third, but then came together again right at the end. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. It's got such a bleak, dark vibe to it, as you'd imagine from noir fiction, and some fantastically kind of visual and memorable scenes as well. So there's a bit where the main character has like a, what's it called, like facial reconstructive surgery to change his appearance, and some of the scenes after that are just brilliant. So yeah, really, really good, and looking forward to reading more David Goodis. So this was the final book in my 50 before 50 challenge. So the two that I had left to go this week were the Tolkien and this one. So the Tolkien clearly I DNF'd, but that is acceptable in the rules of the 50 before 50 challenge, because I said I was going to try and read these books, not necessarily I was going to finish them. So I think in total I DNF'd 4 books during that challenge. So out of 50, that's not bad going, really, is it? So yes, this was the final one. So I made it. I really wasn't sure at times whether I was gonna succeed or not. It did feel like quite a daunting challenge at times, but I've had such a fantastic reading month so far this month, helped in part by having a week's holiday, that I've managed to do it. So very pleased about that, and I will make a video kind of wrapping that up and just talking about my experiences of doing it. So that's what I have read. In terms of stuff on the channel then, what have you had in the last week? So you've had my wrap-up video for my 100 book challenge, so I finished that as well. I did my video announcing the Horror Mayhem event, which, if you missed it, is an event dedicated to reading horror, running through the month of May. No real rules to it at all, other than the book should be short stories, novellas, or shorter novels, so under 250 pages or so. So check out that video, or indeed hop on my Discord if you want suggestions of books to read for it. There's a channel for it on my Discord, and a lot of discussion going on already around that. I also did a tag video with questions themed around pets, where you get to meet my cat Venus. And then a couple of reviews from me this week. So The Second Suspect by Heather Lewis, which is a kind of mystery novel retelling the events of her book Notice. And then a Western, The Thicket by Joanne Lansdale, which is a book I really, really enjoyed. And then you also had yesterday my first book haul video since completing the 100 book challenge, where I hauled 44 books, which is a bit excessive, let's be honest. In the week ahead, I've only got one video pre-filmed so far for the week ahead, so my schedule may change a little bit, but you'll get my unboxing for the April box from the Abominable Book Club, which is a horror subscription box, so you'll get to see what I got from them this month. I will, as I say, I'll probably do a wrap-up video for my 50 before 50 challenge, and then and I forgot to say, so yes, so I've said I've finished that challenge, so the deadline for that challenge is the end of the month, because that's when my 50th birthday is. So I just managed to do it. I did it with a week or so to spare. And then you'll get a couple of reviews from me as well. So I'm not sure exactly which ones I'm going to do. I think at some point I will do a review of the Augustina Bastarrica book. I'll do a review of Sworn to Silence, the Linda Castillo book, and I'll do a review of those 3 books I read for Transgirl April. So you'll probably get 2 of those videos this week. And then if I manage to get everything lined up and get all the manga volumes I want to read, I will do my manga vlog as well this week. So I realised when I finished filming there was one thing I forgot to say, which is I'm not reading anything at the moment. So I'm at that wonderful moment, that wonderful slither of time when I've just finished a book. So I've just finished the Augustina Bastarrica book, and I haven't decided what I'm going to read next. I've actually managed to read all of the books I had in my TBR for April, plus some more. So yeah, I don't know what I'm going to read next. I have a world of opportunity. I feel like, you know, when you're a kid and you're on holiday, you know, it's like the summer holidays from school, and you wake up in the morning and there's just a wonderful, you know, a day full of opportunity. You don't know what you're going to do, but you know it's going to be fun. So that's where I am at the moment. I really don't know what I'm going to read next. I think I'm going to go and make myself a cup of tea, have a bit of a think about it, come up, peruse my shelves, and choose something. Okay, time for a random book from the shelves. So, given that I've been reading manga this week, I thought I would pull a graphic novel from the shelves. So this one is My Friend Dharma by Durf Back Durf, which is a kind of mix of true crime and memoir, but told in a graphic novel form. It's fantastic. A really excellent book. I really recommend it. So it's about, so the author, Durf Back Durf, went to high school with Jeffrey Dahmer, the serial killer. And it's about his experiences of going to high school with Dahmer, really. And only to a small extent is it about Dahmer's crime. So you do get towards the end of the book, you know, his reflections on hearing about the terrible things that Jeffrey Dahmer had done. But mostly it's a high school memoir about, you know, being at school with someone who ended up being a really horrific person. Yeah, a really fascinating book. Definitely thoroughly recommend it. So I hope you found that interesting. Do let me know if you've read any of the books I talked about and what you thought of them. Let me know what you've been reading this week. And as I say, hop on my Discord if you fancy chatting about books there. Anyway, I will leave it there and say, as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.